is the second race, Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. It's going to be another hard race. After yesterday, always Kuurne is not the easiest race, especially with the wind. It's going to be the whole day tail or crosswind, so it's not easy. The hills are not that many, but they are on a crucial point in the race. So it's always 50-50 for or a big group of sprint or a small group that splits it up. So you really have to be flexible today and see what happens. But for sure it's going to be another day that we will remember.
Good afternoon and welcome to Belgium. It's the 67th edition of Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. It should be absolutely fantastic, if anything is to go by in relation to yesterday's race won by Ian Stannard. This, of course, the second race in the opening weekend, which basically is the curtain raiser to the classic season. 6 weeks of cobbles, wind and climbs.
Hey Philippe, c'est bien Alexis.
Come on, board!
Come on, Cavendish!
Ja, even keer als hij hem ziet.
Hey, allez Jimmy, allez! L'équipe à Boulogne qui roule.
Doen. Dit lijkt me de Knokteberg. Dit moet de Trieu zijn. En we zijn rechtstreeks in de ether. En we hebben hier een kopgroep. Een kopgroep met nobele onbekenden. Een paar Belgen die ambitieus zijn. Rijdt daar wel een Engoulevent bij. In het groen. De man met de nummer 194. Dat is de meest klinkende naam. Jimmy Engoulevent. Die rijdt al sinds mensenheugenis bij de profs. En ieder jaar wint hij wel zijn ritjes. Van Ginneke, Bakkaert, Ponzo, Engoulevent. Ik tel er in totaal 8. Zijn we al aan bladzijde 2 of komt die nu? Ah, hier komt ook Zupa. Die komt uit Albanië. Vaubourg-Sex, dat is een Fransman. Dan hebben we Meuris, dat is een Belg. En Pijskes, dat is ook een Belg. Hier Vaubourg-Sex, dat is een klimmertje van Veran Classic, helemaal achteraan aan het staartje. Een sudiste opgeleid bij La Pomme en dan zitten we in Marseille. Op 77 kilometer van het einde, dan heeft ook José al begrepen dat het razendsnel ging in de openingsfase. José staat nog niet open, nu wel.
Nu wel, inderdaad, ja. Ik heb me laten vertellen, het eerste uur 52 gemiddeld of zoiets. En dan gaan...
Kokaar. Grote kokaar. Ah ja.
Allez Jimmy, allez Jimmy!
Mensen er eigenlijk heel makkelijk van uit van ja, 50 per uur. Ja, dat is een beetje de normale gang van zaken. Zeker bij dit hier niet. Het is niet de normale gang van zaken. Probleempje daar voor een van de mannen van Jean Ampost. De grootste man in dit peloton hier.
Ja, en dat is er eentje die boven de 2 meter uitsteekt. Ik was vanochtend onder de indruk toen ik hem zag verschijnen. En ik dacht van, oh, worden ze nog zo groot gemaakt? Connor Dunn is zijn naam.
Dat is inderdaad een hele grote kerel. Had er deze morgen er nog een pot of een muts bovenop gezet met nog een topje daarboven van een centimeter of 5. Zo stak hem er helemaal bovenuit.
Ondanks dat snelle aanvangsgemiddelde moeten we wel vaststellen dat dat peloton nog vrij compact is. Daar op de voorpost, want we gaan naar het sleutelpunt zo stilaan. Na deze Knok-de-Berg of Trieux trekken we toch naar de Oude Kwaremond. En daar wordt de boel meestal opengereden. We zien de Belgische kampioen de Busser. We zien ook Johan van Summeren. We zien Offredo. Dan een paar mannen van ETX Quickstep in overleg met de Maas, met Bonen.
Doe niet mee. Zij zo.
Allez Johan, allez Johan, c'est bien. Allez Brian. Nasser, Louani. Il est là, Alexis. Il est là.
Alexis, ouais.
Allez, Vincent.
Smoekelis.
Allez, Jimmy, allez. Allez. C'est encore Bonnen. Bonnen. Come on, Tom. Come on, Yann, come on. Allez, Brian, allez. Ouais.
Fais gaffe.
Mais non, mais il passe à côté. Allez, Vincent, allez. Allez, c'est... Allez, Alexis, c'est haut, allez.
Ouais.
Allez, Lloyd. Allez, Damien, allez. Mais non, c'est bon. Allez, Johan, allez. Allez, Yannick, allez. Allez, Geoffrey, allez. Allez, Johan, ça monte, allez.
doet met het gegeven. Hè.
Ja, dat bochtje daar nemen hè, in de tijd. Het zou zo wel eens kunnen zijn dat we in de strafste stoten van, of de strafste stroken van de helling van de Oude Kwaremond een hergroepering zien. Of gewoon voorbij vlammen. Ik zag ook een ren van Topsport Vlaanderen.
Ja, die
daar
wordt meegesleurd in de val. Het zou wel eens kunnen Van Meijdagen kunnen zijn, want die zat daar net achteraan.
Ook een man van Koffie die daar vast zat aan iemand van Bruxelles-Wallonie.
Is dat Jelle Wallace? 171? Ja.
Dat is dan de winnaar van Parijs Tour van vorig jaar. En dan maakt hij daar een
So 62 kilometers to go. The breakaway of 4 riders now. And the lead is tumbling. And we have a really elite selection of around 25 to 30 riders being led by the yellow of Lotto Jumbo, the team of Sepp van Mark. Surely a champion-elect in the next few years, and no doubt will gather a few monuments in his career. Tom Bonen is also there. Mark Cavendish also, we believe, is in the mix. And I think, Magnus, it's worth talking a little bit about Mark Cavendish. OK, he may have lost some of that real sharpness and speed, but he's becoming a more fully formed rider. And look, he's made the selection on this, you know, quite an elite selection. This isn't just a big bunch. He really is, you know, turning out to be such an all-rounder as the riders take to the path.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly becoming a more all-round rider. He's still incredibly fast in a sprint, and I think we're potentially writing off Mark a little bit too quickly and too early sometimes. I still think that if the Ethics Quick Step team can get their lead out together in the way that you know, Mark deserves to have it, then he will certainly challenge and he will win big bunch sprints again. So far, the last year and a half or so, it just looks like they set off too early, they set out too early, and they end up leaving Mark with, you know, a kilometre or so to go to the finish line, or even sometimes a little bit less than that, sometimes further than that. And you just don't want him, Mark, to have to sit around and try and fight for the wheels and try and find a wheel to follow and all that sort of stuff. It needs to be a clean-cut, very powerful lead-up for him so that he can make that big jump that he has got and reach the top speed that he's clearly still has.
Interesting rider just at the back there, as we see Philippe Gilbert. Looks like Philippe Gilbert is getting distance. He had a very, very hard ride yesterday. Spent the last 40k on his own, unless he's had a mechanical or perhaps a puncture. Looks like he's struggling a bit. It doesn't appear Magnus, that his tyres are flat as they get back onto that little bit of a footpath. But interestingly, the rider just in front of the young Irishman Sam Bennett riding on the Bora Argon 18 squad.
Yeah, Gilbert, it looked like he just dropped his chain or something going around one of the corners, and obviously being on cobblestones, that's not completely uncommon that it happens, but he got his chain back on, and like you said, he had a tough outing yesterday.
So the two surviving riders from the breakaway just out in front on this cobbled section as we hit 60 kilometres to go. They swing right back onto the main road, and believe you me, that will be a massive relief. Such is the contrast of riding on the pave and then riding on the smooth tarmac. And there's the break. There's the chasing group and the two leaders. It's Jimmy Anglouvant, a very experienced campaigner on the Europe car team. Previously a winner of the 4 days of Dunkirk, so he knows how to ride on the flat and in the wind. But time for him now to take a bit of a break, a glance over his shoulder, and he'll see the troops amassing at the front. BMC, Team Sky, Ethics Quick Step, all of the major players are now bringing to an end this breakaway. But what a selection of riders still, a lot of kilometres still to ride, 2 climbs still to go. We have the next climb of the Holstrat, and then following that, the final climb of Nokkerenberg, but that is still with 43 kilometres to go, and I wonder if that will be decisive, Magnus.
Yeah, it is a tough climb, but it's not, I don't think it's decisive enough of a climb to really worry about. They do a race up there that actually does a lap around the Nokkerenberg, and yeah, that does become quite wearisome. If you get the line right down the bottom of that there's a long fast descent. You're swinging around the right-hand bend, Full gas, you can take it as long as you get the line right, and then if you hit it as hard as you can just before the cobbles, you carry the speed almost 2/3 of the way up the cobbled section of this particular climb. It just means that you have to do about 200 meters of really hard work, and then you turn left and you're back onto normal road again. So I don't think the final climb there is going to become all that decisive. It's more likely that we'll see some interesting action in the crosswind coming back through Waregem and out towards Harelbeke.
It should be a great finale. Last year's race was a real cliffhanger. That 10-man group that stayed away. Sepp van Mark was in there, finishing on the podium. Marino Hofland was also there. He's not in this move today, as far as we know. We've seen Mark Cavendish in there, also a rider from YAM Cycling. It looks like in the centre of the screen, the figure of Alexander Kristoff. So some real fast men, and they really have opened up a gap here, Magnus.
Yeah,
because all the main teams are represented, so there's not going to be really much of a cohesive chase, and it's not a particularly big bunch either.
No, it's not. There's a couple of teams I think who just missed out, or certainly only have maybe one rider in that front group. So there'll be a few riders who want, or a few teams who wants to try and chase back on here. But with the strength of the riders that we have in this front group, it's going to be very difficult for any other team to try and make it back on again.
Looks like a combined force of Ethics, Quickstep, Lotto Jumbo and Team Sky. There's Ian Stannard. That's Matteo Trentin on the front, the Italian double stage winner. Was won a couple of stages over the last few years in the Tour de France. A real turn of speed, but equally at home on this sort of terrain. Zdenek Stibar just sat on the wheel of Ian Stannard, yesterday's winner. Englevent in there, been caught by the breakaway, been caught by this move, but still looking pretty comfortable. And the figure of Tom Boonen also there. Sepp van Mark also in the mix. We also know that the young Irishman Sam Bennett is there. Very, very fast and dangerous rider indeed. Also Philippe Gilbert just lifting himself out of the saddle. And also another Team Sky rider. Just on the left-hand side, it did look like it was a Salvatore Puccio, the sprinter from that team. So he's infiltrated this move. Looks like we've got around 25 riders here, Magnus. This looks like a pretty good move, and they are drawing away.
Yeah, they certainly are moving away, and a couple of the Boragon 18 riders in there as well, and it actually looks like one of them is Scott Thwaite.
Yeah, definitely Sam Bennett. I think we'll just check through our numbers here. It is Scott Thwaite, so the young Brit, Scott Thwaite, again, a very fast rider, well identified there, Mads. There's the devastation that has been caused behind. Another large group of around 20 or 30 riders joining what essentially is the peloton. It looks like the peloton is being led by the team of MT and Quebecer, who have no representatives in that move. We saw Matt Bramier ride very strongly yesterday, but when you look at the squad that MT and Quebecer have brought, it's a star-studded team. They have Tyler Farrar, Gerard Ciolek, of course, the previous Milan-San Remo winner and very fast finisher.
Dat is super.
Hey, super.
Pas op elkaar. Ja, Trentin de laatste niet? Ja,
Trentin.
Hier, Kees.
Sutton. Sutton. Mocht u mee?
Fredo, ja.
Je hebt al wacht, die boot.
Dat is al een amateursvernieuw.
Ja.
Petrovic.
Ja, oei. Het is een...
Argar.
Well, I certainly did in the past. It is a difficult racing, what should we call it, difficult roads to race on. And if you go any further back than 20th position, you're putting yourself out of contention for any potential crosswind splits. Because if you're looking at the way this front group is lined out here now, they've got maybe 10 riders across the road, and that is all. After that, you're on that line out. In the gutter, and it's just a question of time. If the crosswind comes in strongly enough, you can only hold on for so long when you're sitting down in the gutter there.
It is not the place to be. But this group now seems to be relaying pretty well. One or two riders at the back, getting a little bit of a free ride. Interestingly, Ethics Quick Step not putting everybody on the front, and the gap now 1 minute and 2 seconds. And look at it, it's three of the team leaders, in effect, of M10 to Quebec are having to ride at the front. Normally, these riders would be protected, but all the fast men are on the front. That's Van Rensburg at the front himself, a winner in Belgium. Very, very good young rider. Came across from Giant Shimano last year to this squad. But look at the gap now, a couple of riders in between, but Magnus, 1 minute and 2 seconds with 55 kilometres to go with the might and the sort of riders they have in that front group. This is a difficult situation for MTN now, and they have no help at all.
No, they certainly haven't, and it is certainly a bridgeable gap. But as long as the front group isn't working too well together. But I think the MTN Quebec riders here are going to need a little bit of help, and although interestingly, AG2R, we haven't seen any of those guys up in the front group. So if they could get a bit of help from AG2R, then all of a sudden we're starting to look at least like it would be possible for them to bring this back. And I should say that there's a few of the AG2R riders working their way towards the front.
Yeah, they're looking after Johan van Someren. You can just see him riding in about 4th or 5th spot at the moment. But this is what remains of the peloton. That the AM Cycling, who also have a rider in the front. I'm just going to, hopefully in a couple of moments, get the numbers, but that's Tyler Farrar looking under his arm to see what help he's going to get. Van Rensburg, the South African rider, goes through to the front, followed by the two riders from AG2R. That's the other World Tour team that have really missed out, and they certainly will not get any help from anybody else. And here are our leaders. And we're still tentatively looking at each other. It doesn't look to me, Magnus, as if they're riding en bloc, as it were, or full gas.
No, they're not. They're not going through in a good way. There's riders trying to sit on. There's riders trying to save themselves, and with that, you know, they keep on. You never end up going through to the front and putting 100% into it. It's always that little bit tentative and trying to save yourself, making sure that, you know, every time you go back, you're trying to pick up a few riders and make them go through as well, and it just becomes a hesitant type of way of riding. But looking at this, I think we're going to get some crosswinds in a second.
It's putting some riders really in difficulty here. This is one of the riders that was in the breakaway, just getting distance. It's so hard. Backart now gets dropped in the crosswind. Backart glancing over his shoulder. He was in the early breakaway, so fair play to him. But look what's happening here, Magnus. The wind coming from the left-hand side, so they're putting it in the gutter, and the riders at the back not going through it, getting punted out the back.
Well, they're certainly going to get put under pressure, but that's a great way of forcing riders to start coming through in a line-out like this and really getting the, you know, getting the whole group to start working well together. All you need to do is just get them sitting down there. And this actually looks, it might actually be Viviani
It does actually, I was wrong, it wasn't Puccio, that is Viviani. He took the first win of the year for Team Sky this year. Another very fast rider. Alexander Kristoff now goes to the front. We have Chris Boakman's also there. And that's the figure getting very, very low frontally for such a big rider. Tom Bonin cut through the air so supremely.
Yeah, it certainly does. And this pace is certainly picking up here now. And even down in the peloton, the chasing peloton with MTN Quebecer and AG2R, there's riders going out the back there.
Well, they've actually taken a few seconds off this lead. 53 seconds it is now. So MTN Quebecer in the black and right. And look, it's a former Paris-Roubaix winner, Johan van Stommeren, one of the tallest riders in the peloton, riding hard on the front. Look at this crosswind here. This is it's do or die. They cannot wait any longer, Magnus. There's no hesitation now. They have to cross that gap, because if it goes out to a minute again, with the limited resources they have riding, it's going to be very hard.
It needs to be a 10-kilometer job where you put everything on the line and bring these guys back. And you know, I'm pretty sure the M10 Quebecer riders there were quite happy to see Van Zummering come up and give them a hand, because he's certainly a man that you want on your side when it comes to trying to bring a break back.
This really is an interesting situation. Ian Stannard rolls to the front. There's Mark Cavendish wearing number 2, a previous winner of this race. And just at the tip of his sleeves, you can see the World Championship stripes, denoting, of course, that he was a winner of the World Championships back in 2011 and has infiltrated this move. He has teammates for company, and one of those teammates is on the front right at this very moment. That's Zdeněk Stybar, the former world cyclocross champion. Didn't ride any cyclocross this season. Well, I think he rode one race, broke his collarbone, and Lefebvre said, hey, no more cyclocross for you. So Stybar normally comes off a few cyclocross races, normally rides the Worlds, but straight into the road season. But he is quite a remarkable rider.
He certainly is, and such an incredible bike handler as well. So this man, I'm expecting some big things from him this year as we're coming in towards the Nokreberg climb here.
Here we go. This is the final climb of the day. It's only 350 meters in length, not overly steep, maximum percentage of 7%. But it's Ian Stannard who goes to the front, perhaps to shake this group up, perhaps to whittle it down a little bit. Look at the power of Stannard. I think he is one of the most powerful riders in the peloton at the moment. And the way he took apart and the way he dispatched Tom Bonin and Nicky Terpstra yesterday was something simply to behold.
Yeah, definitely. And this is, like I said, it's not a particularly tough climb, but you can put the pressure on a few riders. And when you get to the top, you turn left and it falls flat for about a kilometer or so before you start going downhill in towards Waregem. And this climb I've done so many times. I used to live about 2 kilometers away from the top of this climb here. So it was one of the places where I did a lot of efforts.
Oh, look at a couple of riders really struggling to hold on to the wheels. Sometimes when you're in this position, you can just see the brow, the crest of the hill, and you dig deep, almost as if it's the end of the race for you to get back on the wheel, but then you've just got to do it again a little bit later. But this is the final climb of the day, as the route gradually heads back to the finish in Kuurne for those final 2 circuits, 2 16-kilometer circuits. And it's Johan van Zummeren on the front now, out of the saddle, trying to force this group, or trying to close this gap, taking that smooth line on the inside. That in itself is a bit of an art form. You've got to be so careful not to grind your pedals on the inside.
Yeah, it certainly is a difficult thing to do, but all of a sudden he's on his own on the front here working. He's not got anyone with him. Cofidis have missed out on that front group as well, haven't they? So could do with a couple of Cofidis riders joining the...
Well, we saw Nasser Bouhani just as we went on air, signing on, all smiles. No wins for him so far this year. Hatful of top 5, so sprinting well, but not in form. But yeah, definitely Cofidis, one of the teams that have missed out today. But this group absolutely full of fast men, and is one of the fastest riders in the world. Tom Bonin just on the front at the moment. He's got quite a few teammates for company: Nicolas Mays, Yves Lampere, Zdeněk Stybar, and Mark Cavendish. But we're going to take a quick commercial break, so grab yourselves a coffee or a tea and don't go away. I hope you're suitably refreshed as we head into the final kilometres of this fascinating race. Some wonderful racing on the roads of West Flanders. And we have an elite group clear now by 1 minute and 6 seconds. And the peloton, or what's left of the peloton, being led by MTN Quebec. And interestingly, Christian Nies of Team Sky goes to the front. They've got two in front. They've got Viviani in front and Ian Stannard, all of whom are riding. That, Magnus, that's interesting.
It is interesting, but I think it's quite a clever tactic. It could be a very clever tactic. Obviously, you've got Viviani, very fast sprinter. They've got Ian Stannard in there, strong rider as well. But it is a big group. It's 20 riders with only 2 riders in there. So by Sky starting to ride, they can then say, the guys in the front can say, look, we can't ride. The boys are bringing it back, and we can sit on the back of this group and have a free ride towards the finish. Stannard sets up Viviani for the sprint, and hopefully he's strong enough to, or fast enough to win it, which, you know, fair play, he should be. Cavendish is probably going to be a bit of a potential hiccup in that particular part of tactics. But they also by doing that, by putting the Team Sky riders on the front in the peloton, they're putting a lot of pressure on these guys to keep the pace up and to keep riding hard, to stay away. So they're making everyone work that much harder to just keep away from the peloton. So it works even more in benefit for Viviani and Stannard.
It is quite fascinating the way that the tactics play out in this race. But as you can see, I mean, the rough composition, we've got most of the numbers through. There's a couple of riders from Bora Arga 18, and the rider just on the front there is the young Brit, very fast rider indeed, Scott Thwaites. Got a medal in the Commonwealth Games, you may remember, last year. The rider going through is Elia Viviani. The Italians moved across from the Cannondale squad to join Team Sky. Already got a victory this season, and just behind him is Ian Stannard. Martin Wijnands is there for Lotto NL, as is Sepp Van Mark.
Yeah, you're starting to think then why Viviani and Stannard going through, but maybe they might be out of radio range. But it's also a question of where's the wind coming from. Is it actually easier for them to just tap through very gently, borderline slowing the line down a little bit every time they get to the front? So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating the next 44.6 kilometres.
I mean, the debate, doesn't it? It rolls on as we see this great split screen, and now Wanty Group Goubert joining in the mix to assist MTN Quebec in the chase. And it looks like there's a fair bit of impetus there. They certainly seem a little bit more determined. There's something more about the physicality of their effort as opposed to the riders on the left-hand side. But then, if you look at the riders on the left-hand side, they're not desperate. They're in the lead. They're not panicking. And you have riders there of the class and calibre of Tom Bonin, Philippe Gilbert and Ian Stannard, who just look classy on bikes.
Well, they certainly do. And it is a very strong lead group here. There's no question about that. It's just, you know, how are they going to play this out? Because Quick-Step have now got Mark Cavendish sitting on the wheels, and that straight away throws a certain amount of spanners in the works for them as a team even. Obviously, they have a fast finisher with that, but it also means that everyone else is going to ask that team to do the majority of the work. You got Cavendish sitting on the wheels. We're certainly not going to bring him into the finish because he's just going to outsprint all of us, and that means we've just been riding around for you guys. So having such a fast sprinter and such a well-known sprinter in the breakaway is a difficult task sometimes to actually get the tactics right. And I don't know whether this is playing in favour of Quick-Step or not.
Well, this certainly is fascinating. Had a similar situation last year, but there's only 10 riders that went clear, and they went away on the final climb of the day. As we well know, Quick-Step, as they were last year, had 5 riders in the move. They've got 5 again here today. They've got Nicolas Mays, Yves Lampere. They've also got Mark Cavendish, Zdenek Stibar, and Tom Bonin. So a wonderful mix. And of course the Italian with it, Matteo Trentin, is also here. But at the moment there's a few riders missing wheels, but of course there's a few riders here with no teammates, one of them being Alexander Christoph. He's the sole rider from Katusha. But interesting to see Christoph also working, but again it goes in his favour. He'd happily sprint from a group this big, and there's no harm in him just rolling through as long as he's not committing himself too much.
Yeah, and as I said, sometimes it's actually easier to just follow the line through and take that little turn and move to the side and drift back to a certain point in the group rather than sitting down the back and sometimes getting caught in the crosswinds a little bit and having to make big efforts and so on. So it all comes down to the wind direction, the road, the size of the road, and everything else. And you just got to, it's a fingertip feeling, you know, you just got to get it right. And each rider will know exactly what is best for them to do at this particular point.
Well, Yam Cycling now getting in the mix as well, joining Team Sky. There's Martin Elmiger. He's almost the perpetual champion of Switzerland on the road. He's made that jersey his own over the last few years, opting for full leg warmers. But this is Luke Rowe now on the front, 9th place yesterday in Het Nieuwsblad. I think he could possibly be a Classics winner in the future. I love the way that rider has been nurtured at Team Sky, and year on year you've got these incremental gains, and he really is maturing as a rider, and great to have on their roster. But good to hear the Belgian from the Anpost chain reaction team, who was in that leading move and has been absorbed by this elite group that's come across and is happily working. So great to see from him too.
Yeah, certainly. You know, the way that whole team is riding is, I'm very impressed. They never shy away from a bit of racing and actually doing their fair share of the work and so on. And just going to go into a bit of a style thing here now. I love the fact that the cotton-sided tyres are coming back into fashion again.
They do look
not
good.
Just having the completely black sides.
Yeah,
it just looks so much classier, the way bike should look. Sorry, I had to say that.
No. I mean, you can just see the. I mean, some of the bikes are absolutely beautiful. The Bianchi, the baby blue, the azure blue there. What's the official colour of Bianchi?
Celeste.
Celeste. That's the colour. And of course, Tom Bonen riding the S-Works Venge there has his own colour scheme. I think if you look back and see Mark Cavendish, he's also got a bespoke frame there. He's also riding on a Venge, and that's in his unique green and white colour scheme. Great shot of Mark Cavendish there. Good to see him in this move. Had a remarkably good start to the season. Looks as if, that was interesting, looks as if he's riding asymmetric rings there. If you have a close look at Mark's bike, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just watching too many cobbles over the last couple of days has made my head go rather strange. But
yeah, it could be.
But it always fascinates me, Magnus, as we see this group, this group still with a minute lead. Tom Bonen back on the front. He has been riding in the wind so much over the last couple of days. But when you've got such a group, all pretty much, I'd say 75% of this group are all very, very good finishers. And we're used to seeing them in big bunch sprints. But when they're all having to ride on the front, it makes the final sprint such a completely different proposition.
Yeah. Sorry,
So no, I was just saying, as we see the back of this break, you can see the wind coming from the left-hand side, hence the echelon on the other side of the road. That we've got a group here primarily made up of riders who can finish this race, or who can finish very, very quickly, but they're all having to ride through. So it makes sprinting from a group like this far different than a traditional bunch sprint, doesn't it?
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't come down to actual just pure fast muscle fibers anymore at that point. It's actually coming down to more to brute strength. And also getting the moves right and how to play the final sort of couple of kilometers. And straight away you can see the riders moving across the road there, and you got the echelon going, and the jumbo riders are straight away feeling that. Philippe Gilbert noticing as well that I need to be further up the road here, up in the group, so he moves himself up very, very quickly to try and get into that echelon and start taking his turn as such. But coming back to the sprinting, some riders are fast and pure fast, like your Mark Cavendish, like your Viviani. But when it comes down to riding, say, if this group split up again and we go down to sort of an 8 or 10 man group, at that point it becomes more of a brute strength, and who's actually what have you got left in your legs to sprint with?
It's now Topsport Vlaanderen who've come into the mix. The gap now 49 seconds, and they really are eating into this lead now. This is a very interesting set of circumstances playing out. Just look at the determination. Tyler Farrar now goes to the front himself, one of the protected riders, but having to sacrifice himself, perhaps looking after the interests of Edvald Bosenhagen. That was Gerard Ciolek also going to the front. As we have the Ethics Quick-Step riders superior in number in this breakaway, trying to encourage the rest that it's in everybody's best interest to just roll through. And in the interim, they've lost another 4 seconds. Interesting times, Magnus.
Yeah, interesting times, and I think the fact that the MTN Quebec are really committed to the front with a large number of riders for a while, and managed to negotiate their way into getting a well, getting 82 are in there to start off with, has now sparked the sort of the rest of the group here to come through and start working as well. They can see that they're making a bit of inroads on the breakaway. So with that, they you know, they get fired up and we can see, okay, 40 seconds, we can bridge this. We got 39 kilometers to do it in. I think, you know, it's certainly possible to do it.
Especially when they can see them on this stretch of road. But that, although they are riding very hard, they're riding into a very, very hard side wind. You can just see by the flags flapping around about 35 kilometers an hour wind. That's Philippe Gilbert taking his turn, and it's Jean-Pierre Drucker, the other rider, Drucker from BMC. Everybody still riding hard, of course. No radios allowed at this level. This is a 1.1 categorized race, so the riders will not be in communication or direct communication with the team car. And just to the right of your screen, you can just see the bunch, 37 seconds there. It looks like, you know, unless something dramatically changes, the junction is going to be made, as you say, on these long straight roads. Once you have the lead group in your sights, it's that really does spur you on that little bit more.
It very much does. And looking at the front group, no one in that group is really 100% committed. The quick step riders are certainly just trying to get everyone else to ride, so they're very frustrated. And when you as a rider, another rider see a team that's frustrated because you're not riding, then that kind of means you straight away sit back even more and you do less to irritate them even further.
Welcome back to Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, and as you can see on your screen, during the short period of time that you've been away, the bunch have made even further inroads into this gap. But as myself and Magnus were discussing during that break, as soon as the junction is made, we thought that a couple of riders may start attacking, and the attacking has started. And Jean-Pierre Drucker of BMC has attacked, taking a little bit. Don't think it's taken a little group clear. Most of the riders seem to be quite attentive, but Zdenek Stybar driving on the front. But the gap now foreshortened by the wind, but only, I don't know, 15 or 20 seconds now, Magnus. Quite an interesting situation, and we've still got a fair distance to go.
Yeah, there's still a long way to go. We're not too far from the start of the final circuits, but this is an interesting time and position for the guys in the breakaway. Certainly there's a few riders in there who haven't done an awful lot of work, and I'm expecting to see someone like Sepp van Marken putting in a massive attack here now. You need to make that attack before the junction is made between the two groups, and try and bring away a couple of strong riders.
Yeah, Sepp van Marken riding in third place at the moment in the yellow of the new team, Lotto NL Jumbo. Still a few different changes of direction, and these are changes in direction. Although we have no elevation game and no real long sections of cobbles, it's when you have the wind, you need to look and take advantage, if you can, of the change of direction. And I think you're quite right, the junction's not made, but before it is made, I think we'll see the likes of Stannard possibly attacking, and maybe even Sepp van Marken, maybe even Tom Bonen. The gap now only a few seconds. Great helicopter shot there now of the strung out bunch, and it's mainly been MT and Quebecer who've been forcing the tempo behind.
One man on the move up in the breakaway there, and that looks like it is a jumbo.
Oh, it looks like it is Sepp van Marken, perhaps. Another rider goes over the top. It looks like the white jersey is Zdenek Stybar trying to shut that gap down. No, the Stybar is just going now, so this is what we thought. It's one of the riders from Lotto. It looks like possibly Chris Boekmans, who's just gone clear, sorry, adopting that very aerodynamic position, but has been shut down immediately by one of the other Lotto teams in the yellow. Looks like that is coming back, and just behind them is the bunch. So it's difficult to know what's going to happen now, of course, because of the amount of chasing that has been done, and you've had team leaders in the front group working. There isn't going to be one team that's going to be able now to control the bunch, Magnus. So I think it's just going to be a series of attacks and maybe a group going clear. Although the bunch is pretty much all together, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a bunch finish here today at all.
No, I don't think so either. There'll be a lot of riders now who sat on the wheel in the bunch, getting towed up to this front group, and as Lotto Jumbo goes on the attack, I think we're looking at a very, very active final couple of final 2 laps of this circuit here, and also knowing the circuit in around Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, like you said, it's not undulating, it's not hilly at all, virtually pan flat, but there's an awful lot of twists and turns in it. There's traffic islands, there's road furniture everywhere. It becomes a technically very difficult circuit to deal with, and we've seen in the past that you know, groups have split up on this circuit, even though it's not as challenging.
There we go, the junction finally made, despite the best efforts of Sepp van Mark and Tom Bonen to try and keep the impetus of this breakaway going. They have one solo rider clear. It is Bokermans, glances over his shoulder. Very smooth style, just rolling that gear around. I wonder if he's going to persist with this one, but you can see he's really struggling to get into that headwind there. There's the Swiss champion Martin Elmiger of I Am Cycling on the front, and also on in third wheel there, it's Edvald Bosenhagen, who moved across this year to MTN Quebecer, of course, from Team Sky. But it's all back together, bar one rider. So 34 kilometres to go. I estimate here we have around 70 riders left in the peloton. And as we know, because of the riders that were in that lead split, there's some very, very quick men here. We have Tom Bonen, Mark Cavendish, Alexander Kristoff, Elia Viviani. So some very, very fast riders. I think I've also seen the Am Cycling figure of Palucci, already a double winner this year. Not exactly sprung from nowhere, but a real fast finisher. Took a stage of Tirreno last year. It looks like we have a Buhani also in the mix from Cavendish. So some of the fastest riders around, all back together. So if it does turn out to be a bunch sprint, it's going to be an absolute rip-roarer.
Yeah, definitely, and I think we should add into the equation here all of a sudden that, you know, Mark Cavendish made massive effort to get into that group over the top of Eau de Quarmont. Viviani's done that same effort as well to get in there and actually keep on riding. So all of a sudden we've got two of the fastest sprinters in this race, having been in a breakaway and actually having done a fair bit of work rather than sitting on the wheels and getting an armchair ride up. So this is becoming quite an interesting finale.
It certainly is, but this is when there's that lull, this is where riders will take the opportunity to try and attack. So Topsport Vlaanderen, and it's extremely difficult. There's the kilometre to go flag. So we are on the circuit now. When we pass through the finish in around 900 metres, they'll have two complete circuits to go. But because of this strong wind, it's very difficult for one individual rider to stay clear. But Drucker at the moment, of Bookman, sorry, looking pretty strong, but no real cohesion at all behind here. Teams riding on the front, but no real sense of any strategy or plan at the moment.
No, definitely not. But it also looked like Bockman's there just kind of shutting it down a little bit. He's looking back, and he's certainly not going with any real force into it. Stannard having a chat with Servais Knaven in the team car.
Yeah, Servais Knaven obviously was one of the orchestrated, if you can say that, when there's no radio contact at all. The finish yesterday himself, a winner in the past of Paris-Roubaix, so very, very experienced indeed, and very, very pleased with his charge. I think whatever happens today, Team Sky can go away from the last week or so extremely happy. They've had wins from Richie Porte, Geraint Thomas, Chris Froome, and Ian Stannard. So across all boards, stage racing, stages of races, and then classics too. So a good start to the year from Team Sky. But at the moment, a bit of an entente cordiale in the peloton. Nobody really committing, perhaps waiting for the next couple of laps. I'm sure we'll see some tentative attacks, perhaps on some of the exposed sections where the wind is. But at the moment, it's all even.
I think for this particular circuit, you're more likely to see, for anything to really stick and for the peloton to split up, you're likely to more see a cohesive attack by one or two teams with a large number of riders and just making a big move in the crosswind. We should say, though, that from the wind direction that we've had, there isn't an awful lot of sort of properly exposed crosswind, so yeah, it could be difficult to really split this group up.
elongated. It's quite an urban area. It goes through Harelbeke and Kortrijk, which is quite built up. So a lot of there are, of course, on the circuit, several changes of wind direction. But as you correctly say, Magnus, a lot of it's sheltered, so the wind perhaps not playing quite as big a part. It'll more be in relation to how tired the riders are. Many of the riders in this field coming off the back of a very hard ride yesterday. But interesting at the moment, it's pretty calm there. The blue jerseys of Wanty Group Goubert on the left-hand side. In the centre of your picture, you have the white and red jerseys of Katusha with that little fluoro stripe. Europe car in that green, and Lotto Soudal in the red at the moment in the centre of the screen, leading the peloton.
Be interesting to see with Europcar if Brian Cockart is in there. He rode a very, very good Omnium race at the World Championships on the velodrome. If he's managed to transfer that speed onto the road, he could be a man for today. He's certainly looked incredibly fast in that Omnium race.
Exactly, yeah, well, he's a world champion. He's already had a win on the road earlier this year, won a stage of Étoile de Bessage. Had a fantastic Tour de France, was up there in the green jersey points competition. Didn't pull off the stage, but one of the big French hopefuls. While we're talking about French riders, it doesn't look like Arnaud Demar took the start line today. He finished in the top 12 yesterday, but it was down to start today, but has opted not to ride. So it could be, I think, for French hopes in relation to the finish. So we have to look to Cockard and also Nasser Bouhanni, who's yet to chalk up a victory after coming so close on a few occasions. But looking at the situation at the moment, and you can just see Nasser Bouhanni surrounded by his teammates. He did say in an interview about a week ago that Cavendish still haven't quite dialed in their lead out yet. And there he is, just with the black helmet on. Just singling him out. He's wearing a different coloured helmet to the rest of the team, but a very interesting character, Bouhanni. But a keen boxer too, and he certainly is quick when he puts his mind to it. Perhaps not on top form, perhaps looking to peak for the Tour de France, which is one of the main reasons why Cavendish brought him across. Obviously, he picked up a hatful of wins in the Giro d'Italia last year, but remarkably fast on his day. But I wonder how he's feeling today. But it's a Europe car at the moment, just setting, relatively well. For this standard of race, a relatively sedate tempo. I think a lot of the riders will be quite relieved. As you can see, there's Cockard, just in the centre of your screen, bobbing in and out of the saddle, looking a bit like a young Tommy Voeckler there with that rather interesting mouth position. Viviani on the right-hand side, just gone back out of view for Team Sky. So an opportunity here, Magnus, for the riders to have a bit of food and a few drinks before things start to heat up.
Yeah, definitely. And by the time they get around to that feeding station again, they'll be inside the final 20 kilometres where you're not allowed to take any more food or drinks from the team car or from, well, you can take it from the side of the road. There's no way they're going to stop that, but usually the racing is flat out by that point.
Welcome back to Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. We're in the town of Kortrijk at the moment on the first of 2 laps of the finishing circuit, 27.5 kilometres to go. And at the moment, the bunch is all together, being led by the troops of Katusha. We estimate around 70 riders left in the bunch. And we have 2 circuits of 16 kilometres to go. Ethics Quick-Step, as you can see, very much to the fore. No doubt looking after Mark Cavendish. At the moment, Magnus, we thought there might be some tentative attacks, but all the teams, or most of the teams that come to this race, have brought a protected sprinter. And we know that most of the big-name sprinters are still in the mix. Do you think we'll actually, apart from teams who maybe haven't got a sprinter with a few tentative attacks, do you think we'll see all the major sprinting teams combine to keep it all together for a big bunch sprint?
Well, combine, I'm not sure about, but I think they will, in one way or another, work together to get towards a bunch sprint. I think a lot of the smaller teams that they've ended up in this position are thinking, okay, let's just have a go at this and see if we can actually create something and put ourselves in a position to maybe pull off a top 10 at least. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult final 2 laps, I think, to control this as well, for unless that you can see maybe teams like Katusha and Quick-Step and possibly Sky going together and then starting to work. But I still have the feeling that Ethics Quick-Step are going to be the guys that are going to be expected to do the majority of the work to bring a break back, because they still have Mark Cavendish in this race, and he still commands that much respect from all the other sprinters and all the other teams. You know, that he's... I certainly would be very tentative to put my team on the front when Cavendish is dead. Let's just try and get him as isolated as we can coming into the sprint, so we can at least hope that he gets boxed in, and by that we end up with a high percentage of a chance of winning the race.
I mean, Mark Cavendish knows this race. He's won it before, and also, if any of the riders, most of the riders here know this race. But of course, they get even if you know a course coming into the finish, a lot of things will depend on the wind direction. But the good thing about today, they're twice to the finish before they actually cross the line, for real, as it were. So every team, every rider knows the finish. They know where to position their riders. They know which way the wind direction is. So it's going to be all to play for. It really is going to be interesting. I mean, while we're on the break, it's worth mentioning now, as Katusha lead that long string of riders through this through the streets of Kortrijk, that we saw Tyler Farrar, the American on the MTN Quebecer team, with his flowing locks, drop back to the team car to get some more bidons during that kind of lapse in proceedings when the pace dropped, and was chatting. And because the riders aren't on radios, he basically had the opportunity to talk to his director sportif, and was saying, yeah, we all worked on the front to help get the gap back, but we saved Edvald for the sprint, and that was really telling. We thought that was the case. We saw him near the head of affairs, but never put his nose in the wind. And interesting, Edvald does go well this time of year. We haven't had much of him at all this year so far, but does normally ride well in the classics, and he's been brought onto the roster at MTN to perform in this sort of race. But interesting that you know, riders like Steelek and Tyler Farrar at the front looking after Edvald, so the pressure's on him.
Well, the pressure is on him, but you know, that it's a different kind of pressure, I think, in MTN Quebec than it would have been at Team Sky. Yes, they're obviously very keen on performing, and they're not going to throw any opportunities away. But I think it's a slightly different, slightly more relaxed environment, and someone like Edvald, I think, will probably thrive in that. And once now he sees that his teammates are happy to commit to him 100%. He's not doing it off his own back and trying to get to the front and, you know, sort himself out for the sprint. He's actually getting help to do this. I think that's really gonna help him to get even more into it, and probably, you know, a bit of a rebirth for him at the end of the day.
Definitely, I think he's had some good years at Sky. I mean, I think his best year, the year exactly escapes him when he won 2 fantastic stages in the Tour de France solo. Quite astonishing. But sometimes, you know, a lot of people argue that Sky wasn't the team for him, but I think it's not necessarily the team. I think it's yourself. I think it's sometimes good to move teams to get a different sort of environment, be with different teammates, perhaps different director sportifs with different views on the sport, to reinvigorate your enthusiasm, and also the way you look at the sport. So I still have a lot of belief in Edvald, and hopefully he'll perform well at MTN. We'll certainly see today, because it'll be the first time we really show him at the front. But it's still Katusha. And they're, of course, looking after Christoph. But what a powerhouse Alexander Christoph is. Who'd bet against him today? I mean, looking at the situation here, Magnus, we have Viviani there, Mark Cavendish, Boonen, Christoph, Nasser Bouhanni. A real, I don't know, just a fantastic roster of sprinters. Who do you think is going to come out on top today, looking at the situation? Just lay your cards on the table.
Okay, put my cards on the table. I'm actually going to go with Viviani for that one. I just think he's really on well, from what I saw on the track, he looks like he's pedaling incredibly well. He's clearly got the power in him to follow that move in and get into the break. He's looked comfortable.
Nu gaan ze nog 2 keer zien. Hij zit nog 3 keer rijden, dus nu nog 2 keer. Nog 2 keer? Ja.
sure some of the shots head on. To me, he looked very cut. He looked a little bit lighter than he has been in previous years. He looks like he's very focused and already has the confidence of a win under his belt, putting away some notable sprinters too.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Although I don't think confidence has ever been Viviani's problem.
No. He's a confident young man, but he said. I mean, I think he's one of the riders. When he gets beaten, he shows his frustration like no other. Banging that.
Dat ding weer? Yeah.
Very much like Mark Cavendish. But I'm going to go for Cav today.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Mark Cavendish. I just think he's looked good all year, and I think because of all of his main adversaries were in that breakaway today. A lot of them riding in the wind. One of the only ones that didn't ride in the wind was Cav. You didn't see he had 4 teammates at his disposal, but guys like Christophe have been riding. I think that just might have deadened Christophe a little bit, although I think Christophe revels in a harder sprint. Look at the way he took Milan-San Remo. Look at the way those really hard tour stages. And I think this sprint, it suits a rider who can go long. Because Christophe, although he hasn't got that ridiculous sharp acceleration, he can go long and just keep going faster and faster and faster, and nobody can come round him.
No, that's the thing with Christophe. His top speed is so high that he needs to be dropped off at almost his full sprint speed to really make that make the difference. So it's more like a rider that needs to open up first and get everyone else to try and come around him, and that's certainly not an easy thing to do. But yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting final here. And but looking at Sky, they got a large number of riders in this team, in this peloton, we should call him now probably. So if that's anything to go by, they're certainly going to have a good lead out for Viviani if they can get it together.
Definitely. Well, talking about Team Sky, a rider we haven't mentioned who's on their roster today, wearing number 11, that's Lars Petter Nordhaug, the Norwegian rider. He's in the mix. You can just see, if you get a shot of the Team Sky in their dark blue, he's got the Norwegian champion stripe on his right sleeve. So look at him. Christian Nies is also there, the former German road champion. Looks like definitely Ian Stanhope is there, and also Luke Rowe, as well as Viviani himself. So Sky there in numbers, as are Etix, as are Lotto NL Hyundai. So who do you think, I mean, looking at the men in yellow just to the right-hand side, just near to Etix, what sprints are we looking on that squad?
Well, I would put my cards on Jos van Emden from the Lotto Jumbo team. It's a difficult. They haven't really got a super fast sprinter here. I think they've probably more played on it being a very hard race, and it's going to split up and become a sprint from a smaller group. And I've just spotted the man with probably the biggest beard in the professional peloton at the moment, Bernie Eisel, on the front here as well, and he is going to be absolute key to this setup of Viviani's sprint today. If Bernie's there to control things and to make sure that the sprint gets set up right. I mean, remember, he used to do this at High Road
with Cav, with Cav's lead-out man, yeah.
So Bernie knows how to play this role and to set this up right. And as long as all the other guys are doing their work and really committing to it, and sprint lead-outs is all about commitment and making sure that you get through that crowd of people in front of you, regardless if it means you moving people out of the way or not. You've got to follow your teammate. So you'd rather eat some dirt in the gutter than missing that, following that wheel.
Welcome back to the closing stages of Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. It's looking at the moment as if it's going to be set fair for a big bunch sprint. Some really aggressive racing earlier on. We had 8 riders go clear from the very start. They were reabsorbed by a group led by the powerhouses of Sepp van Mark and Tom Bonen. Ian Stannard was also in the mix. Around 20 riders did go clear, but the bunch brought them back. But it took a while. MTN Quebec, one of the most notable teams to have missed a rider in that move. But they managed to team up with several other teams. Cofidis, also a couple of the Belgian squads. Well, only Topsport Vlaanderen in particular, and eventually shut it down on the run into the finishing circuit. Now it is Gruppo Compacto, as the Italians say, and they're coming through for the last ronda. to dip into Flemish for the final lap. So
showing off all your language skills here.
there we go, yeah, very tentative, but no, Katusha across the line, 1 lap to go. There's the bell, and there is the finish straight. Just look at the wind direction, Magnus, on the flag there. That's going to be absolutely key. It's coming from the right-hand side, which means riders are going to want to push the basic... hand flat. It's going to be great.
It's going to be a great finish. Setting up this sprint, the final part of the lead-up needs to be happening on the left-hand side, up against the barriers as tight as you can go, just keeping your sprinter out of the wind, obviously. But then as you start peeling off, you peel into the wind, which means you're still covering your riders coming through. And any sprinter or any team who wants to come up and challenge you for that leader is going to have to come around you on the right-hand side in the wind, effectively. And that just means that they'll be covering you again. So as soon as they come up and start drag racing with you, you'll get that little bit of a slipstream, and you're able to pick up the speed even further again. So with that, I think this is going to be one of those sprints that whoever dares to take on the lead up first and gets up against those barriers are going to be in a very strong position.
It's going to be very interesting. Of course, they've got that left-hander, and although there's around 400 metres still to go, positioning into that left-hander is going to be absolutely crucial. We'll see him ping round that corner and then go wide before swinging left back into the barriers and hugging the left-hand side. As we see a conversation here.
Matteo Trentin having a conversation with Wilfried Peters about the setup probably of this sprint and what they're gonna do.
Yeah, Wilfried Peters, a very experienced campaigner himself, a very talented classics rider, very good on the pavé back in the days of Johan Museo. Rode as part of the early quick-step formation, the back end of the 90s. A very nice chap indeed, but very experienced, got a good tactical brain. And no doubt
in the Mappai before that.
He certainly was riding with some of André Taffy, those sort of characters back in the day. But back to the present day, and it's still the team of Katusha, the Russian squad on the front in that white and red kit. And this year, interestingly, they've got a little flash of fleur on there, perhaps a nod to Italy. Because I only say Italy because they like fluid colours, really. It's nothing. There's no real Italian heritage there, but I just know the Italians like a bit of fluid. And this is where there's a few conversations being had. Various riders dropping back. The pace not particularly furious at all. But I think with around 10 kilometres to go, you're going to see all the teams starting to form, and you can see the colour blocking at the moment in the centre towards the back. The yellow jerseys look like wasps of Lotto NL Jumbo. The red and black of BMC, the black and blue of Team Sky, the bright blue of Wanty Group Goubert there on the right-hand side, the yellow on the left-hand side, and the yellow and white, that's the continental team of Wallonie-Bruxelles. Philippe Gilbert just goes to the front. I'd estimate maybe 50 or 60 riders left in the mix, but some very fine sprinters indeed. 13 kilometres to go, still no team has really taken things up at the front to really line this out. But bear in mind, some teams have numerical superiority over the others. They're going to leave it very late. And Magnus, we've seen in the last few seasons, even especially in the bigger stage races, that teams leaving it later and later to bring their riders up because it's so competitive.
It is really competitive, and you can't start the lead up too early either. You know, if you end up doing that, then obviously you're going to end up getting swamped, and teams overtaking you and so on. So this whole thing of staying near the front, staying in a position where you can get yourself out and get clear road, but waiting there for as long as you possibly dare, and it comes down to, you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice the race to actually be able to win it. And I think that's been part of the Ethics Quick-Step issue in the past, is that they've been so keen on winning and so keen on setting things up in a spectacular fashion for Mark Cavendish that they've actually done it too early, and with that ended up basically shooting themselves in the foot. Because like last year, Giant Shimano, they were always waiting till the latest sort of possible moment, sometimes too late, and they had to, as soon as they got through found the gap and got through it, had to dump a couple of riders off the lead out to get the sprint set up properly with just the right amount of riders, because you don't want too many guys in front of you either. So if you're coming around the final corner with 400 metres to go, you certainly don't want 5 riders in front of the sprinter.
Looks like another. It's Matteo Trentin, clearly suffering perhaps from a little bit of cramp, gripping the inside of his thigh there. He looks like he's got cramp, doesn't look particularly happy at all. The Italian drifting back, not making really any attempt to get back into the bunch. Looks like it's a game over for him. That's not going to be good for Etixx Quick-Step. They'll need all the men they can muster to look after Mark Cavendish for this particular finish. But we know that Boonen is still there. Stibar, Kaiser, Nicholas Mays and Yves Lampert all still there as far as we understand for Etixx Quick-Step. But still Katusha making the tempo at the front and the pace gradually increasing now. You can just see the effort far more visible now, getting low on the drops, and Team Sky also in position. Second team in the string now. See Bernie Eisel, the bearded Bernie Eisel there, Christian Knees also in the mix. Very technical here. You've just got to keep your eye on the ball, as it were. Can't let things slip.
But at this point, just stay calm, still just wait and wait. There's no point in going up, riding alongside the other teams and starting to sort of stress them on. You want to tuck yourself out of the way. Probably about 15th to 20th wheel is where your 15th wheel is where you want to have your first man in the lead-out train, and then just sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait and have one big go when you see the rear road clearing up. So keep the team together, keep them compact as much as you can, protect the sprinter, and just don't make any effort.
A great shot here of the peloton weaving their way around this urban landscape, going far quicker than that train, I may add. Great ride. Just love watching the old. It's organic, isn't it? The way that it's this lovely fluidity about the peloton as they move through the streets, back under the bridge, and now just 10 kilometers to go on Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. Ten kilometers to go now of Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, and it is all together. One large group of riders, around 60 strong. Many fast riders still in the mix. And the team on the front, still Katusha. They pretty much led from start to finish on this finishing circuit. Gradually increasing the tempo, pretty steady at first, and now they really are ramping things up, Magnus. Really setting a tempo. Look at the string now. You need to get yourself into a good position. All of the teams now will look at getting their sprinter in a good position. You can see riders constantly glancing around. Team Sky all looking around to make sure that Elia Viviani, the new Italian on their team, is in a good position and that he's feeling good.
Yeah, definitely. With Katusha here really picking up the pace a bit through the town of Kortrijk, and just going through the corners quite hard, and with that just putting the pressure on the guys further down the back. You've got the sort of rubber band effect of going through all these corners. You can't really go through a corner safely right on the wheel, and you always end up losing, even if you are going on the wheel, and I'm talking an inch or two off the back of the wheel in front of you, then you still get that meter or so out of the corner in terms of the acceleration from the riders in front of you. And the further down the back you go, the faster you have to ride to get yourself back onto the wheel again. So it's just a question of time before that band just snaps halfway through the group.
Well, while you were just talking there about the mechanics of the way that a bunch runs, I had the clock on how, I mean, bearing in mind there's 60 or 70, maybe a few more actually, maybe 80 riders left in this field. It was around, between 15 and 20 seconds from the first rider here from Katusha to the riders flapping around at the back, really struggling. So that you basically have to go faster than the riders in front, and generally if you're at the back, you're there for a reason. It's because you're tired, and moving up in the final kilometers of a race, once these World Tour teams really start to rev things up, is nigh on impossible. But as we can see, it looks like most teams do have their sprinter in the mix. There's Christian Knees, the tall rider from Team Sky, with the flashes of the former German road champion. You can just see Elia Viviani move out. Looks like Chris Sutton's also there, Magnus, in the mix, a former winner of this race. There's only 3 former winners actually riding today. One of them is Chris Sutton, the other Mark Cavendish, and the other Tom Bonin. So good to see Sutton in the mix as well.
He certainly is, and I think that it looks like they got a good setup today to really pull something off. But obviously, as we're coming into sprint, you know, it becomes a little bit of a lottery.
It certainly is. It's, I bet, you know, I was, as is well reported, I was never really one of the finest sprinters of the peloton.
Oh, really?
Magnus, but when it but when it did come to the finish, you know, even if from a small group, riders now start to get nervous. There's a lot at stake, especially for one team in particular.
Daar.
Probably called a not ideal position, but he always gets himself very, very close to the action. Today now it is still all about who stays cool, and the problem for these riders as well, it's a very technical circuit. There's twists and turns all the time. You need to almost attack into the corners to make sure that you're getting your team, the whole of your team through the turn. As we see, Team Sky have been split up. We've got a couple of riders on the left-hand side, just behind the Katusha riders. A couple of guys on the right-hand side, as you picture at that point, trying to make their way back up again. They obviously missed that corner. So 6.5 kilometers to go, way too early to open up the lead out and start really riding hard on the front. But at the same time, you got to make sure that you're going through each of these turns in a position where you're all together. Sometimes, though, if you end up in Ian Stannard's position here now, and you have a look around and you say, okay, my boys aren't with me, they're not really sitting too closely to me, what you do, and if it's a block of riders from other teams on the front, you just open up the throttle that little bit more, string out the bunch, and give your team a clear way through to move their way up to you again.
If there's anybody who's got the ability to ride hard on the front, it's this man. Yesterday's winner of Het Nieuwsblad, and of course the winner the year before, and what style he took it in. Riding on the crest of a wave, Ian Stannard, and more than happy to ride on the front, his nose in the wind. And then he's overtaken by teammate Lars Petter Nordhaug. Very, very strong rider indeed. But the other rider who's also there I was wrong, it wasn't actually Chris Sutton, it was Salvatore Puccio, who's also in the mix.
It certainly is, but they need to just calm this down, just stay calm, don't ride too hard on the front here now. It's far, 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 far too early. This kind of effort needs to be made with about 3 kilometers to go at the earliest.
Because they don't have Chris Sutton there. Obviously, I think they have about, at the moment, Nordhaug is on the front. You have Ian Stannard in second position. Third position is Salvatore Puccio. Then you have Christian Diniz, then Bernie Eisel. And then just in front of Bernie Eisel is Luke Rowe. And then you have Elia Viviani.
Luke Rowe is a very good lead-up man. He's fast and also a strong man. He can take a long turn, he can take a short, hard turn. As it goes, Gilbert.
Gilbert, it's do or die for Philippe Gilbert. This is the sort of racing that he likes. Come to the end of a race, if it's all together. Philippe Gilbert, although he can sprint pretty well, he prefers an uphill drag, but he does like a solo attack. And if there's anyone that's going to possibly do it, it is Philippe Gilbert. But bear in mind, yesterday he was on the attack, caught in no man's land, finished in the top 10, but that must have been a very, very hard 40 kilometers. Has he got it in the legs? But I do love the tenacity of the former world road champion, Philippe Gilbert of BMC.
Yeah, definitely, but it's a good time to attack because obviously the teams are not going to want to ride too hard at this point. It's too far out, but they need to obviously start bringing, they can't let Gilbert go up the road too far because are you going to bring him back? He's that strong a rider. As a general rule, 1.5 kilometers, you need 6 guys in front of the sprinter.
Yeah, I mean, it's the speed that these guys go in the finale. And I think Philippe Gilbert, looking at that, he's a little bit ragged, still very, very strong. I think he's riding into a bit of a headwind. But look at the determination written large upon the face of the Walloon. I love his esprit, the way he rides, absolutely fantastic. He is a rider to look to in terms of the way he sets about races. He's got an 8-second lead. I think the gap is foreshortened due to the wind, but absolutely flying at the moment. 3.5 kilometres to go. Has he stolen a march, or have the teams of the sprinters got this under control? 6 seconds is the lead now, but great to see.
Yeah, I think 6 seconds you can swallow up on a lone rider in the space of a couple of 100 meters when the lead-out really gets going.
Says to him, keep going. To Salvatore Puccio, still glanced over his shoulder, make sure his teammate is on the wheel. There's no point in riding hard unless you've got your teammates on your wheel. So Team Sky there, still looking pretty strong. Christian Nice shouting encouragement to his teammates. Looks like one of the Anpost chain reaction riders has unfortunately taken a spill on that corner. That just shows the dangers and how nervous these final kilometres can be. But look at the power of Philippe Gilbert. He's opened up the lead now to 10 seconds. Has he stolen a march here? Has he caught these teams napping? It's Team Sky that are pursuing behind.
Yeah, it's certainly a very, very brave and strong move by Philippe Gilbert, and if anyone can pull something like this off, it is him.
Philippe Gilbert, look at his mouth agape, trying to gulp in the air, trying to power those. Look at this, this is very, very, still 10 seconds. And at the moment, it's Philippe, sorry, it's not Philippe. That's Stannard on the front for Team Sky. And close behind are the troops, the combined troops of Ethics Quickstep. And on the left-hand side, I think that looks like the team of Cavendish also moving up. 2 kilometres to go. And at the moment, Magnus, he's riding into a block headwind.
Yeah, he certainly is, and it's not helping him an awful lot, that's for sure. Little bit of crosswind he probably would have preferred that at this point. Quickstep, Ethics Quickstep coming up here now, starting to almost take over a bit from Team Sky. What they need to do is effectively, the Sky just got to move their way onto Mark Cavendish's wheel with the 3 riders they have got left. They've got Bernie Eisel, they've got Luke Rowe, and then Viviani. Stay on Quickstep's wheel, let them do the work, and then on the final straight in, that's when you try and make your move and get clear and come around them.
This is an absolutely incredible move by Philippe Gilbert. He's got 11 seconds, and now Lotto Soudal take it up at the front. They'll be looking after there, the Belgian national road champion, very, very fast finisher, Jens de Boucher.
And they had Cofidis on their wheel as well with Nazabani, so this is all the big guns are lining up.
1.5 kilometres to go, and still the Walloon persists. Do or die now from Gilbert. Is he going to get caught? You can just see him in front there. He'll be waiting. This is absolute agony for the Belgian. The attack with around 4 kilometres to go, and he's still holding off the bunch into this dreadful wind. Keeps glancing over his shoulder. 7 seconds now. The bunch spread all across the road. On the right-hand side, it's Lotto Soudal leading the chase.
They're in the red colours there on the left-hand side of your picture right now. On the right-hand side is Ethics Quickstep, and they're losing men all the time, trying to bring back Philippe Gilbert into this headwind.
This is it now, the final kilometre.
The team you have seen today again, that they're really strong and that they're ready. So let's see what the result will be.
So Philippe Gilbert takes a desperate look under his arm, but it looks like it's game over. It's the Belgian squad of Lotto Soudal now taking it into the final. A left-hander, he is caught. So it's Lotto Duboucher in the tricolour. Also, there's a Zdeněk Stybar, Alexander Kristoff in that distinctive style. Fakatusha also in the mix. But this is it. They're on the left-hand side of the road, making the sprinters come round the right-hand side. Tom Bonen is also there, but what a lead out here from Lotto.
Yeah, Luke Rowe looks like he's trying to move Viviani up. It just hasn't quite got the legs. Viviani being dropped a little bit too far back. 300 meters to go.
300 meters to go now. It looks like Alexander Kristoff on the left hand of the centre of your screen, sat in the saddle, powering along. He opens up his sprint now. Mark Cavendish is on the wheel of Alexander Kristoff. Viviani on the left hand side. Kristoff goes, Cavendish in the middle, Cavendish in the middle. Cavendish takes it. What a victory for the Max man from Alexander Kristoff. Viviani of Team Sky in 3rd place. Wow, what a sprint that was.
Yeah, that was kind of everything that we were hoping and expecting it to be. To be honest with you, all the big guns being right.